Welcome back to My Life, His Story. This is part 2 of Adam Davis's story. If you joined us last week, you heard about his childhood trauma and how that kind of that unresolved trauma followed him throughout his teenage years. And we learned about his journey to law enforcement. When we broke off last week, Adam was talking about how things were fine because he just ignored them and acted like they weren't there. And I think this week we're going to hear just a little bit more about how Adam Davis continued from where he was to where he is. When we stopped last week, you had talked about where you were in law enforcement. You were on night shift. Your wife was taking care of the kids, trying to keep them quiet while you were sleeping. You had young kids and you were drinking pretty heavily. And so let me ask, how did that end up going from what it was to you exiting law enforcement?
So I started off on night shift patrol, and it just kind of it wasn't just like I put on a badge, and then every night I'm sitting there kicking around beer bottles around my kids. I mean it was it was like that.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I started off just kind of being casual drinker, social, um, and then I started off on night shift patrol and went to day shift patrol. Then they moved me to traffic homicide. Went to be trained as a hostage negotiator, and then criminal investigations. I had multiple roles, as everybody that does that job knows. You have multiple roles, um, but it just progressed. I mean, I feel like that over time, I became emotionally numb. Not even really that, more of a seared conscience. Um, because of, you just 99% of the stuff that goes on in your community you don't know about. You see the headlines,
Sure.
and that's the way that those men and women who put a uniform on that some of you hate, that's the way they would rather it be. So you can lay your head down on your pillow at night, so you can sit around the Christmas tree, around the Thanksgiving table, and enjoy your time and not worry about the stuff that they deal with, that they carry, that they know about. It's just the stuff that it's the suicides, it's the murders, it's the rapes, it's the robberies, it's the elderly, it's the children, it's the injustice of why do why does God allow people to live that hurt children? You
Mm.
know, um, I'm not a judge, and it's very hard for me not to be um, to get that way real quick when it comes to certain people. But so no, I progressed, and um, the more time I was there, to the harder I became, and I feel like that for me it was a self defense mechanism, and then it was really a combination of things. It was self defense, preservation. It was the peers I surrounded myself with. I put my family at work ahead of my family at home. Um, and then it just got to the point where most of what I was doing was boring, man. Like I couldn't get a rush off of stuff like I used to. Um, and then it's just became it I don't know, and I think a lot of it was what happened as a little kid, as a teenager. That unaddressed crap just kind of amplified what I was dealing with in law enforcement, and
Sure.
we don't talk about it, we don't say it. There was things I had questions about, and so there came a point to where um, I try to talk to a pastor, I try to talk to somebody, and I would just use my street language, and they were like, "Hold up," and they wasn't ready for that, and there wasn't a lot of people that I could just like really say, "This is what's on my mind right now." Facebook has that
Yeah.
thing, "What's on your mind." You really don't want to know what's on a lot of people's mind that deal with evil day in and day out, but so I think it just compounded. It was a lot of hate for evil, like pure hate for evil. A lot of frustration with political situations, the fact that people can do evil and prosper so well and run free, and on technicalities they can run free. There's just a lot. There's a lot. You see a lot, you deal with a
Sure.
lot, and then at the end of the day you become the one that's hated just because of what you stand for, the uniform you put on. But so I started drinking really heavy and got to a point where I really wasn't moved by anything. I was unfaithful to my wife, and um, I wound up separating for a little bit and living in a portable office building where I could drink however much I wanted. I'll tell you this: I had a bad case of victim mentality, and I was one of the most selfish human beings on the planet. And I've gone back and analyzed this. I don't know what I could have done to have avoided it, other than opening up and talking
Sure.
about stuff sooner. I really don't know. I don't know. But I know that I was hard hearted, closed down, isolated, withdrawn, ticking time bomb. And alcohol, I can tell you that there was a lot of times I'd say, "Man, I can't wait to get home so I could have a drink and relax." And what I found was, if there was, and I'm just going to use this as an example, if there was 10% anxiety present in my body and I drank to feel like I could get that down to 5%, after the effects of alcohol wore off, it was 15%. So whatever
Sure.
was there came back stronger, and it just made it even worse. And then compound that on top of really stupid, sinful, selfish decisions I made. Um, and so I wound up separating and from my wife and my children, and was a totally different person than who I am today. And I remember living in that little portable office building for a little while, and I got up on a Sunday morning to go. I remember it because I knew everybody would be in church that morning. I got up and put my uniform on, and I was working an overtime detail, and got my marked patrol car, and I went to go do some work. And Brian, listen, there's a few people who know what this feels like, what I'm about to describe,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna lay it out there for you. Trapped,
Mm.
helpless, hopeless, defeated, tired of fighting, tired of hurting. I felt like there was no way, like from the time I was a little boy through my dadgum rest of my life, it has been one dadgum pain after another. And every time I started getting momentum, or every time there was a victory, there was some kind of screwed up crap that happened to put a
Yeah.
damper on that. I had a bad case of victim mentality. I know it. I was selfish. I was hard hearted. I was jacked up,
Yeah.
but I was also deeply, deeply wounded. Deeply
Yeah.
wounded. And I don't mind telling you about the stuff I've done. I don't mind telling you about the stuff that happened to me. But what I didn't
Right.
want to tell you was I was wounded and I needed help.
That's right.
And that's where I was at. And so I had a chaplain get in my car a few months prior. Well, probably towards the beginning of my career, because it was on night shift. And this encounter with this chaplain kind of stuck with me throughout my career. And I was a go getter, man. I was, and so he got in the car that one night. I paused. Let's pause the Sunday morning I get up to go to work here after separating.
Sure.
So night shift patrol. This chaplain gets in my car. Lieutenant says, "Hey, chaplain, riding with you tonight?" I said, "Man, screw that. I don't want a chaplain ride with me because I'm going to put people in jail. I'm going to be in fights. I'm going to be in pursuits. I'm going to lock people up, man."
Yeah.
And that's the way I was. I mean, I was brand new, and and he got in my car, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I'm not changing anything about what I do or how I talk or how I approach my job because you're in my car. If you still want to ride with me, knowing that, then stay in here." I said, "But otherwise, do exactly what I tell you to do." I was like, "Don't expect me to talk different because you're in my car with me." Dude, I was a jerk, man. And
Yeah.
this chaplain looked at me. He was a pastor. He looked at me and he was like, "It's all good, man." He was like, "This dude loved me right where I was at, man. He loved me. He was so
Wow.
kind to me." He was so kind to me. He didn't say, "You shouldn't talk like that. You shouldn't." He just, "Hey, can I get you anything? Can I do anything?" Like, and most of the time he just sat there and he was just quiet. And then I would strike up a conversation, or he'd strike up a conversation, and we're still friends to this day.
Wow.
And the way he treated me in that moment was so much different than what preachers had treated me like growing up in the church, where it was like, if you do this, you're going to go to hell. If you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. Look, I believe that there's a balance to preaching the love of Jesus, and that people need to know that there's a place where we go, that if we reject Jesus Christ, that's where we go, the separation of God for eternity. That's what it was.
Sure.
It was not created for us. It was created for the enemy. But if we
Right.
preach the love of Jesus, it must come with a behavior change because of that encounter. It's not because you have to prove your love for him, or you have to do this to get his love. No, his love demands a response. Even if you reject it, that's the response.
That's
And
right.
our lives have to become a place where your love purifies me. You call me to a place where I want to be sanctified. I want to be cleansed. In the process of the cleansing and sanctification, you're going to work a healing in me and through me, instead of this whole performance thing. So anyway, it had an impact on me. And so let's go back to the Sunday morning. So I get up and I know everybody's going to be at church. I hated church. Hated it. I hated it because I feel like these people don't have a freaking clue what goes on in this city. Yet they gather in these
Sure.
buildings in their nice clothes on these fine pews in this comfortable building, and they don't have a freaking clue what's going on out here. And they don't give a crap about the cops. Yeah, thank me for my service. Thank me for what I do. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean crap. You don't know what's going on. I want somebody that knows how to pray for me, man. I want somebody that's going to walk me through this, that's going
Yeah.
to tell me it's okay, because I wanted to feel some innocence again, and there was none.
Mm.
I felt like it was all tarnished and ruined forever. So, victim mentality, selfish hard heart. I get in my patrol car, did my job. Screw it, dude. Pull into the parking lot of a gas station, or abandoned gas station, and pulled my sidearm out, and I was done. I remember pulling it straight out of the holster, and I know the next move I was going to do, and I just paused. Paused. And I'll say this, and I've said it a number of times: there is a miracle in the pause. There is a miracle in the pause for me, and there may be a miracle in the pause for you. Maybe it's a pause in how you respond to a confrontation, or pause in how you respond to a decision. There's a miracle in the pause, in the waiting. And I paused that day
Wow.
and I yelled at God. Now, I'd been interrogated internally for several months prior to this. I know you exist. I believe you exist. Um, but you say you're good. I don't see it. You say you're
Wow.
loving. I don't see it. And I know this is the most arrogant thing. I get it. I was in a bad place, man. I was in a dark place. And so this
Yeah.
day, I pulled my sidearm and I paused and I said, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know where you're at. But if you have a plan for my life, you can have it. Otherwise, I'm out, because I didn't want to live again. I didn't want to live anymore. I certainly didn't want to fight anymore. I was tired of hurting. I was done. I mean, I'm completely, completely, completely done. And so that was kind of how things progressed.
Wow. And I've talked about my story on this podcast multiple times, right? And when you talk about hopelessness and helplessness, um, I get it. I found myself in a very different circumstances led to it, but I found myself in a very similar place back in 2012 when I attempted to take my own life.
Hmm.
And um, it was interesting as you were talking about that chaplain and how he impacted your life. Like, in my head, I instantly started thinking about Evan Owens, right? Because that's the part he played in my life. Is
Mm.
he came alongside me, and it wasn't don't say this, don't do this, but he just loved me where I was. And
Right.
a lot of the reason why I went from where I once was to where I am now is because of the way that he just loved me where I was.
That's so
And
good.
so I think it's beautiful how, you know, different ways, different circumstances, but God still puts the people in your life that you need at that moment, the people that get it. And man, and I love what you said. Sorry. I love what you said about there's a miracle in the pause. Because I think that's so true for many aspects of life. And I think when I look at even my own life, even currently, right, that pause, man, it can make all the difference in what you say, how you respond, your actions. And man, I just want you to know I'm super thankful for that pause on that day. Uh,
Me
I'm
too.
super thankful.
I'll
And
tell you,
yeah,
man, every key moment in my life has been an embrace. It was either an embrace with darkness and pure evil, or is an embrace with the living God. And there's two totally
wow,
different embraces. You can live from the point of an embrace with evil, and you can walk and carry out evil. You can leave a path of destruction because of the pain. You don't even have to do it in a way that's like criminal in nature. Just the way you treat people. That's what I was doing. I used to speak absolute pure death into people. I would destroy them with my words. And that's why I work so hard now. Not because I believe that my good works can make up for my bad works. No, I want to make up lost time. And for
yeah,
all the lives that I destroyed with my words, I want to reach as many others with life. And and so
wow,
I've the only way to describe what happened in that moment was an embrace. And I've had people try to analyze it, and I'll tell you straight up, I don't know how to break it down for you. I'm sure that there's a physiological response or explanation. I'm sure there's a
yeah,
psychological response or explanation, but I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that when you call out to a living God at the bottom of the pit that you're in, that he will meet you right there. He will meet
yeah,
you at the breakfast table, or he'll meet you at your deathbed. He'll meet you at the boardroom, or he'll meet you at the graveyard. It doesn't matter where you are, graveside or deadgum bedside. He'll meet you in every situation. He'll meet you at the altar at the wedding, and he'll meet you in the bedroom. He'll meet you in every circumstance you're in if you'll call on him. You don't have to wait to the point you're ready to end your life to call on him. Call on him. I remember asking him, "Where were you when this happened? Where were you when this happened?" You know what he said? "I've been this close all along. All you had to do was call on me.
dang,
All you had to do was call
wow,
on me." Instead of trying to control it myself. So that moment, here's what I felt. I don't know how to explain it. I had a complete peace rush over me. Complete peace. I've tried since 2015, about 6.5 million times in the words I've written for blogs, articles, books, you name it,
right,
to convey this peace. Can't I'll never be able to match it. You just got to experience it yourself. And then I had an embrace, man. I felt an embrace of absolute perfect, perfect love. Like any type of love you pure love you've experienced, that somebody has shown you, multiply it by at least 1,000. It was so
wow,
perfect. And this kind of phrase kept repeating, "There's nothing you can do to change my love for you. There's nothing you can do to change my love for you." And it hit me, man. Now, I had an encounter with the living God. That's what I firmly believe. That's like I said, I'm sure there's an explanation. But I
sure,
I had an encounter with the living God. He redeemed me. He restored me. But I still had to make some decisions and behavior changes going forward. You
right,
can have an encounter with God
it's
all day,
good,
every day. You can go to church 365, 12 times a day. I don't care what it is. But if you don't begin to make some changes in your behavior and your habits, then you're going to
it's good,
continue to get the same results you've gotten, because you cannot live in a place of abiding with Him and coexist with sin. We can coexist with people who don't believe and have different beliefs, but we cannot live in a place of abiding with the one who redeemed us and with sin. Something's got to go. And so
absolutely.
I went and I found my wife that afternoon and I said, "Listen, I don't do cocaine, by the way. I just need to shave my nose hairs. I'm sorry." Uh, so, uh, um, and I found her and I said, "Listen," and I was just bawling. And I said,
Yeah,
this is what happened. This is where I was." And I remember saying, "Come home. Just come home. Come home."
wow,
She does not deserve a single moment of pain that I've caused her at any point in our life. That's my greatest prayer is, "Lord, I know that there's some payment that I have to make along the way. Wait. wait, yeah, I've got to pay for all of my sins. I've got to pay for all of the things I've done. There's got to be consequences, or don't hurt my family. And then he's like, mm-mm, no, 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 no. You're letting the enemy speak, because my son hung on the cross for every single consequence of your decisions, for
It's good.
every moment of shame, for every moment of guilt. Listen, we can dance around it. We can dance around this, and we can tiptoe around it. I'm going to give you the answer right now if you're ready for it. You can take it or leave it. It's a true encounter with a man named Jesus. He'll set you free. Everybody wants to water this down. They want to give you 5 points to a better life, to a better you. Man, crucify your flesh and lay it at the altar and let Jesus take over, because it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. If you'll give your life to Him, and I'm talking about surrender to Him in every breath and every moment, He'll change everything about you. And
That's
that's
right.
the change we need. Man, bump 5 steps to a better life. I don't want to live my best life. I want to live a life that's surrendered to Him, and my
That's right.
victory is in Jesus. That's the secret behind Unconquered. It's not that I'm saying that we can do all things and we can beat every enemy and we've never been defeated. No, no. The secret is give your life to Jesus and you'll live eternally. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the message. So I get
And
fired up when I
it's
talk about Jesus. Sorry.
no, I'm so like
Yeah.
this is awesome. I mean, the fire in your belly that you have, right? It's I have a phrase that I say all the time, right? That our pain has his purpose, right? Like
Hmm.
he makes a purpose for every single pain we've endured in our life. And I think what people are seeing right now. I mean, you can look at all of your books: Behind the Badge, Bulletproof Marriage, On Spiritual Combat, the newest one, Live Unconquered, right? You can look at these books and you can see the passion, you can see the fire in your belly, right? That this is bigger than you. And what's amazing for me right now that I just wanted to bring up is to think about, in the last 5 minutes, you went from hopeless and helpless in a squad car, ready to end everything, to now launching multiple different projects to help others go from where you've been to where you are. And man, it's inspiring. It fires me up. And, you know, you and I have talked multiple times just about how crazy it is when we stop trying to run everything and we
Hmm.
give it to him, and we decide to be obedient to what he's called us to and stop chasing what our desire is. It's crazy how he'll use us. And right now he's using you in huge ways. I mean, he just is. And so will you talk to me a little bit about what's coming up in January with your Live Unconquered series?
Oh, um, yeah, I've got this. It's the second conference we've done. It's a virtual conference. Maybe one day we could do them in person, but I'm not an event planner or an organizer, so we're doing it via
Me
Zoom.
neither.
And anyway, so I've got 2 or 3 days. I believe it's 3 days, January 3rd through 5th. You can register liveunconqueredconference.com. You can register for free for a limited time. There's also some upgrades that you can get. I'm giving you a ton of stuff if you would like to get the upgrades. And that does help my ministry. That helps what I'm doing. It helps me further because, look, I got to have money to take care of my family, and I have to have money to be able to meet my needs and obligations and continue the work that He's called me to do. I can't, like the gospel's free, the
Right.
labor's not. So I need help, and so that's one way I can do it.
That's a t-shirt, my friend. The gospel's free, the labor's not.
So I mean, um, and so it's coming up. I've got people like a guy named Christopher Healy, former federal agent, incredible man, incredible amount of wisdom. And then there's a brother named Jeff Fields. Jeff has a story of sobriety that is going to rock you to your core. He's got a new book coming out in the spring called Sober from Sin. Christopher Healy has a couple out, one called The Indispensable Man, and then he's got another one called In Valor. And so it's 365 entries on Valor. And then we have Dr. Medina Baumgart. She's a doctor of psychology, director of psychological services for a very large law enforcement agency on the West Coast. Married to a retired law enforcement officer. And then we've got a lady named A.K. DeZanti, incredible human being, incredible coach, incredible trainer, and proud police wife, Rebecca Lynn. She's going to be on talking about from the spouse's perspective. And then I'm going to bring you some stuff towards the end. I'll be the very last presenter, but if you register for free, you can watch them during the time January 3rd through 5th. You can watch them those days only. If you register for the middle tier package, you can access it for a year. If you register for the VIP, you get them for life. You means you can go and watch them as many times as you want, and then you get all the bonuses that I give you. The bonuses alone would be more than the price of admission for the VIP. So I really didn't expect to mention that on here, but thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, and I appreciate it. Um, Thank you for giving me the chance to even be on here and just to hang out with you, man. We need to talk more. Good grief.
We do, man. And I Adam is he's way too humble to say it, but I've known Adam for a few years now, and when I first started trying to be obedient to what God has called me to, I struggled severely with self doubt, right? Like, I didn't think that my voice mattered. I didn't think that my story mattered. And Adam is much too humble. Um, but he is one of the people that came alongside me and really kicked me in the tail to be obedient to Jesus and what he's called me to. And so I'm super appreciative for how you've helped me grow as a communicator, as a speaker, um, and man, it's just thank you so much. I know that this was just the tip of the iceberg of your story, and I know we could do tons more, and we will. Like, this just
Well,
gives me an opportunity to bring you back.
yeah, anytime, brother. Anytime. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Adam, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Adam Davis. I hope you're encouraged right now to know that just because you're where you are right now doesn't mean that's where you have to stay there. And despite what hole you're in, despite how you got there, you too can make the choice to call out. Thank you for listening to My Life, His Story. Make sure you follow along for new episodes, and we'll see you guys soon.